Shina was already back on her feet, holding her weapon and standing next to her brother. In Natsuki's thoughts, those twins, especially the older brother, were showing a level of skill they had encountered only in the most insane battles. Witnessing it, Amine also felt that something about it triggered a memory. They were all deeply unsettled, including Torimaru and Mafuyu, because his level seemed to rival that of the Order members, Nagumo, Shishiba, Osaragi, as well as the formidable enemy, Gaku. The man turned to face them, surrounded by the bloodied and defeated fighters who had just gone up against him. He said he would ask one more time, tell him where Taro Sakamoto was, and then he'd leave them alone. None of them responded, and Torimaru simply waited to see what her comrades would do next. Shina grew frustrated, unable to believe what her brother had just done. She grabbed him, angrily reminding him that this was their first assignment, and now he wanted to wuss out after all that. He began sweating as he suggested maybe they could just try talking things out, but Shina wouldn't allow it. She rejected the idea and said they would fight with everything they had. Natsuki told them to forget it. They weren't going to sell out their friend. Shina's brother said he understood where they were coming from. Everyone locked eyes with him, bracing for what came next, and all he said was, "It is what it is." Torimaru and Amine were the first to launch an attack. They leapt at him together to strike at once, but instead of dodging or stepping back, he simply caught their weapons with his bare hands. Then, in one swift move, he hurled them both with full force across the area. But he didn't stop there. He kicked Torimaru beside Amine, and the two were sent flying in opposite directions. The sheer power behind it slammed them into pillars and walls, which crumbled from the impact. Seeing that, Mafuyu charged in next. But before he could even strike, the man casually kicked him away too, sending him flying effortlessly. Shina, watching, commented how rude that was. Her brother told her not to be stupid. There was no etiquette in killing. Meanwhile, Natsuki was already in position, staying close to the side while wearing his invisibility suit. He had prepared to attack, but the man sensed his presence, something Natsuki didn't expect. The man said that if he really wanted to be invisible, he should erase his sound too. And with that, he turned his attention to Natsuki and took him down. Natsuki didn't even get the chance to resist. Watching what had just happened, Kaji called the man a freak. He wasn't even sweating while fighting. What's more, his heartbeat wasn't changing at all. Shina's brother called them all beasts. How could they still be charging at him when they were clearly outmatched in skill level? Everyone was already wounded, even though he had only attacked each one of them once. He then explained that every time he fought, he was always scared. No matter how hard someone trains, he said, once you die, it's over. That made Torimaru ask why he even became an assassin in the first place if that was how he felt. He seemed to pause in thought, and just as he was about to answer, Shina suddenly unleashed a barrage of gunfire with her Gatling gun. She leapt into the air and fired from above. Everyone quickly dodged because of how fast she was shooting. She yelled at her brother to cut it out already. He was too tough, and no one was going to be able to kill him. His endless complaining was just bringing her down. Her brother apologized for it. As Shina landed, the floor beneath her suddenly cracked and gave way. She fell straight through, alarmed, and dropped to a lower level. What she didn't expect was to land right into a swimming pool. She panicked because she didn't know how to swim. Still, she plunged down into the water, struggling to breathe below the surface. Her brother was worried for her. Meanwhile, Torimaru said this was their chance. She jumped down from the upper floor, followed closely by Natsuki. Shina's brother was shocked to see it. But in Natsuki's thoughts, they were out of time. Sakamoto and the others were going to arrive at the JCC in less than an hour, and he knew he wasn't in any condition to face them. That's why they had to stop this here and now. He and Torimaru both charged in from both sides, with Natsuki staying invisible even underwater. Because of that, Shina couldn't see him. She tried to find him, but she couldn't even hear anything down there. She grew frustrated because it was so difficult to fight like this. Just then, her brother dove into the pool too, carrying a weapon. He stayed calm and observed the scene. It didn't take long for him to locate Natsuki's invisible form. Though he couldn't see him, he noticed the bubbles coming up. So he wound up from behind and delivered a heavy blow straight to Natsuki's back. As a result, Natsuki and Torimaru were blasted out of the pool together. A massive splash of water burst out as the force of the strike dragged Shina up from beneath the surface as well. He asked her plainly if she wasn't able to locate her opponent just by watching the bubbles. Toramaru and the others were clearly shaken, frustrated that they hadn't been able to take advantage of that moment. As Shina gasped for air, she explained that she couldn't open her eyes underwater. But his brother said she can if she'd try. Now that everyone was out of the pool, the siblings once again prepared for their mission. Natsuki, on the other hand, was clearly badly injured. Mafuyu quickly ran over to him and asked if he was all right. When he saw his brother's bloodied body, he grew worried. The wound looked serious, and Natsuki stayed silent as he thought to himself. His vision had started to blur, and he was already feeling dizzy. Still, he spoke to Mafuyu and Toramaru, telling them that the two of them should leave now and bring the others with them. He pressed the button on his suit, which left Mafuyu confused, and then removed the entire thing. On the other side, Shina asked her brother to stop helping. He didn't know what to say. Shina insisted that she could have handled that weakling all on her own. She hated when people interfered in her fights. In response, her brother told her to stop messing things up all the time. He didn't save her because he wanted to. Shina was irritated and called him a jerk. Back to Natsuki's group, Mafuyu couldn't believe Natsuki was actually telling them to bail. He asked if he had lost his mind, but Natsuki insisted they couldn't win this fight. That's why they needed to leave now. When Mafuyu asked what about him, Natsuki just grabbed him by the shirt and instructed him to find Sakamoto and tell them not to come to the JCC. What Mafuyu didn't expect was for Natsuki to put the invisibility suit on him. He demanded to know what Natsuki was doing. But then Natsuki also pulled Toramaru close and told her to stick with Mafuyu. He activated the invisibility suit, and soon the two of them started to disappear. The twins looked toward their direction, but in that moment, Natsuki gathered all the strength he had left and hurled the two with all his might, something they never saw coming. They went flying out of the glass window. People outside were stunned to see the glass suddenly shatter from out of nowhere. Now it was 1 versus 2. Natsuki stood alone to face the twins. Shina asked him if he really thought he could take them both on by himself. He simply answered that maybe he could. Shina grew irritated and commented that older siblings were always getting in the way. She muttered again how annoying that was. Her brother looked troubled when he heard her say that. Natsuki then pulled out his liquid nitrogen bomb and called the younger siblings annoying little brats, saying how they are a pain in the butt. He took that moment to throw the liquid nitrogen bomb toward where they were standing. The two were caught off guard and didn't see it coming. While they were distracted, Natsuki took the chance to escape and ran off. Of course, they didn't plan to let him get away so easily. As he peeked back at them while running, Shina's brother began to wonder what Natsuki might be planning. When he reached the ledge, Natsuki jumped off without hesitation. Shina followed him, holding her Gatling gun, and told him to stay right there for her. And so he did. He stood still, staring right at her. Even as she aimed her weapon straight at him, Natsuki didn't flinch and faced her head on. Shina was thrilled. She said she finally caught him. With that, she pulled the trigger and unleashed a hail of bullets. However, not a single shot hit Natsuki. He calmly remarked she couldn't hit him from there. Shina was stunned, unable to believe what just happened. The two siblings had been trapped inside what looked like a hospital room, something they didn't expect at all. Natsuki, annoyed, thought that this transparent ICU unit was supposed to protect Sakamoto. He never thought he'd be the one to use it. As they stood inside the sealed transparent room, Shina's brother was impressed with Natsuki's setup, but Shina wasn't having any of it. She continued firing at the wall non-stop, demanding he let them out. Despite that, none of the bullets made it through the wall of the chamber. Outside, Natsuki explained that it wasn't possible. The wall was made of a special alloy. It was impossible to break through with human strength. So, he told her to do him a favor and stay in there quietly for a moment. Then he pressed a button on the control panel, which caused the invisible room to emit a wave of electricity. Inside, Shina raged and began kicking everything in sight. She cursed him and swore she'd tear that brat apart. Meanwhile, Natsuki used a device to monitor them from the outside. The thermogram showed that Shina's brother's energy was starting to cool down. It was getting harder to even pick up his presence. But what Natsuki saw next on the visual display made him pause. It zoomed in on the young man's face. Then his hand moved forward. He spoke to Seiba, saying that he had been wrong. Didn't he remember what he had said earlier? Natsuki wondered what he was referring to. And then he remembered. It was the statement about how the wall was impossible to break with human strength. Now, the man got into position with his weapon and declared that all he had to do was go beyond human strength. Natsuki was alarmed when he saw the sudden spike in energy readings. It made him question, what kind of energy was that? It didn't take long before he finally broke through the wall of that invisible room. Bit by bit, he tore it apart, until he created a hole large enough to push through and charge straight at Natsuki. He grabbed him by the neck and began to choke him, catching Natsuki completely off guard. The young man then admitted there was only one thing that had been bothering him. He glanced at the room he had just broken through and asked, why was that ICU made transparent in the first place? Natsuki cursed in his mind as he remained in his grasp. With that, Shina's brother realized something. That Sakamoto must be headed for the JCC. He wondered if he was right about that. At the same time, a van was racing down the road, carrying Sakamoto inside. He remained unconscious, his condition critical. An oxygen mask was still strapped to his face as he was being transported. Back at the JCC, Shina's brother asked if he was right in thinking that Sakamoto was on his way there. Natsuki, still being choked, couldn't give an answer. Meanwhile, Shina climbed out of the hole her brother had made. After hearing that, she said their job might just get a lot easier. With his head turned back, her brother asked how she was doing, and she replied that she was fine, just not in peak form today. Because of that, her brother advised her to rest for now. He would handle the rest. Shina was stunned when she heard that. She got annoyed and told him not to underestimate her. Out of frustration, she kicked him from behind, making him release Natsuki. As he fell to the ground, Shina aimed her Gatling gun at him. Alarmed, her brother asked what she was doing, and she shot back that he was always looking down on her. She decal-read that she could handle weaklings like that on her own. Her brother agreed, but pointed out that she looked tired. That irritated Shina even more. Just because he was the older sibling, he always interfered and tried to protect her, and she found that incredibly annoying. That's why she wanted that she would be the one to finish this. Natsuki couldn't do anything anymore. But then, Shina's Gatling gun suddenly got slashed, part of it flying off, which caught her completely off guard. Someone had arrived, saying he understood. Older siblings really were annoying. And it was Mafuyu, who had returned wearing Natsuki's invisibility suit. He stepped in front to protect his older brother. Natsuki was shocked and asked if he was stupid. Why had he come back? Mafuyu answered that he realized something. Natsuki hadn't expected that, and Mafuyu explained. The strong people around him were always fighting to protect others. Natsuki was surprised by that statement. Mafuyu then kicked Shina backward, sending her staggering. Still, Shina scoffed, calling his words dumb. She couldn't accept the idea that strong people were always protecting others. Real strong fighters, she said, didn't care about anyone else. Really? Mafuyu questioned. Then believe what you want. He said he was just trying to catch up to everyone. He charged at her again while still invisible, telling her to get out of the way. Shina couldn't dodge and got hit squarely. She was irritated with the invisibility suit. It was a problem if the one using it was someone who can move. She couldn't see his movements or predict his next attack. Because of that, she brought out her weapon again and transformed it into hammer mode, a massive warhammer. She slammed it onto the ground with immense force, full of rage, and challenged him to come at her. Mafuyu took off the invisibility suit and charged at her directly. Shina could finally see him, but her brother shouted that it was a trap, and it was. Mafuyu struck her with something, hard enough that she spat blood and collapsed. She hadn't expected it at all. Mafuyu had hidden rocks inside the suit he had tied earlier. He told her he had tricked her. Then he opened the suit and poured out the rocks he had stuffed inside. Even Natsuki was impressed. He couldn't believe his little brother had thought of something like that on his own. On the other side, Shina's brother grew concerned for her. She was already lying face down on the floor. Meanwhile, Mafuyu spoke to Natsuki and told him that he asked Amine and the others to go find Sakamoto. For now, they needed to get out of there. Natsuki agreed, and in his mind, he thought to himself, Mafuyu had really grown up. However, Shina's brother suddenly stopped them. Both siblings were alarmed by the intimidating aura he released. Sitting by Shina's side, he said that all he wanted was to live a peaceful life. But what else could he do now? Then he asked Mafuyu what his name was. Mafuyu introduced himself. The man said his name was Kippei, and it was a nice to meet him. Then came the challenge. He told Mafuyu to see for himself who was stronger. After all, didn't they both have someone they wanted to protect? Mafuyu was left speechless by that. Cut to the highway. Shin and Boiled had stepped out of the van and were engaged in battle. Boiled was irritated that those Japanese were still getting in their way. Shin agreed, saying Saba and the others had been waiting for a while now. Wutong then urged them to hurry up and get back inside the van. As they drove off again, they said they had to get Sakamoto to a safe place as soon as possible. Inside the van, Atari pulled out some kind of sticks in her hands. Lu asked what she was doing, and her face showed that whatever it was, the result wasn't good. Shin grew concerned. When Boiled asked what the problem was, Shin answered that he sensed something bad coming. Then, the scene cut to Tanabata, walking down the middle of the highway, carrying his guitar on his back. A car passed by on the side, and someone inside called out to Tanabata, referring to him as Band Guy. They invited him to hop in, saying they were heading to the same place anyway. Switching back to Sakamoto's van, Kindaka asked Shin if he could feel anything, and he replied that he could. Boiled grew concerned, thinking they might not make it to JCC at this rate. Shin warned everyone to prepare for battle, saying that the enemy was coming. Hearing that, Kindaka grew anxious and asked where they were going to attack from. Suddenly, a medical device inside the van began to sound off, detecting abnormal radio waves. Aoi was startled and visibly alarmed by it. Up front, Boiled couldn't believe what he was seeing. They were approaching a toll booth, and standing directly in their path was Gozu, casually sipping a drink. The ETC card warning chimed, saying the card wasn't properly inserted. Gozu remarked that the drink was good, while Boiled was caught off guard, not expecting to see him again. Moments later, Gozu leapt forward and shattered the van's windshield while it was still moving. He landed directly inside, right on top of Sakamoto's unconscious body, shocking everyone in the van. Gozu smirked, surprised that Sakamoto had managed to survive despite the injuries he had sustained. Even so, Sakamoto remained unconscious. From the side, Shin lunged at Gozu, aiming a punch at him. But Gozu dodged with lightning speed. Leaping upward, he countered with a powerful kick to Shin's face, sending him flying out the van's back door, which had burst open from the impact. Aoi nearly fell out as well. Panicked, Aoi screamed Shin's name, clearly worried for him. But in an unexpected moment, someone caught Shin from behind. The person remarked that he almost fell and told him to be more careful next time. Shin thanked him, but immediately asked who he was. Back in the van, Gozu stood silently over the bed where Sakamoto was lying. He then activated his ability to manipulate kinetic energy. But just as he was about to act, a hand suddenly appeared in front of him at incredible speed. Someone rushed in and slammed him out of the van. It was Kindaka. Boiled shouted in alarm as he noticed Kindaka had jumped out of the van. The two of them landed directly onto a car driving alongside them. Gozu noted how fast Kindaka was on his feet, calling him old man. But Kindaka insisted he couldn't let the younger ones outpace him. It turned out that the driver of the car they had landed on was Torres. Annoyed to see them, Torres demanded that they give him a break. He cursed, yelling that it was his car, then raised his sand blaster to aim at Kindaka. He didn't expect that, but just before he could fire, something rammed into Torres's vehicle. A large truck pulled up right beside them. It was the one that had rescued Shin. Shin asked Kindaka if he was okay. Kindaka looked up and said yes, but asked him what he was planning to do. It turned out the truck Shin was riding was a water tank pump. He pierced the tank's pipe through the window of Torres's car, then released a strong stream of water, flooding the inside through the cracks. Inside the vehicle, the water quickly filled up, making it hard for Tanabata and Torres to breathe. Torres asked what the hell had just happened. Tanabata pulled out his guitar and dropped it to detuning. As a result, the top half of the car was blown off completely, sending a surge of water bursting out from within. Meanwhile, Shin and Kindaka were now together. Kindaka remarked that Shin was starting to act more and more like Sakamoto. Shin laughed, saying that X had told him the same thing. Back in Torres' car, Gozu commented that he just received a nice car wash. Maybe he shouldn't be so mad. But Torres snapped back, saying that car washes were meant for the outside, not the inside.